They told you freedom would arrive precisely at 65. They promised that if you worked hard, stayed loyal, and kept climbing the corporate ladder for 4 obedient decades, one day you would be free. Free to travel, free to relax, free to finally live. Retirement was painted as the promised land, the ultimate reward at the end of a long, compliant life. But what if that promise was never real? What if it was a carefully crafted illusion, designed to keep you producing, moving, and complying without ever daring to question the exorbitant cost? For most of your life, the script has been clear. Study hard, get a steady job, work for 40 years, and then retire. That is the path, and most people follow it, diligently, without ever asking the essential question: who wrote this script in the first place? The truth, waiting at the end of that prescribed path, is far from liberating. According to a 2020 study by the Stanford Center on Longevity, over 2/3 of retirees in America report feeling profoundly disoriented within just 18 months of leaving their careers. And it's not because they ran out of money. It's because they ran out of identity. They suddenly wake up in a world where their fundamental role, their purpose, their very sense of self has completely vanished. You see, the system did not prepare them for freedom. It prepared them to function. It rigorously trained them to operate within a massive machine, never to live meaningfully beyond it. Retirement is not the grand reward they were promised. It is the quiet dismissal from the stage. It is the moment the defining role ends, the spotlight fades, and no one bothers to tell you what to do next. And that is precisely where the existential crisis begins. Because what do you do when you've spent your entire adult life performing a single role, and then that role disappears? Who are you? Without your job title, without the relentless emails, the urgent deadlines, the critical meetings that once made you feel important. For decades, your value was strictly measured by productivity, not presence. And now that the system no longer needs your output, you are suddenly expected to know how to simply enjoy life, without ever having been taught how to exist.
End of a long chapter. Maybe it's the moment you realize the book was never truly yours to begin with. And that realization hurts, because it forces you to confront a deeper, more profound question. What does it truly mean to be free? If you spent your whole life perpetually waiting for permission to live, are you genuinely living at all? We are taught systematically to delay everything: joy, rest, discovery, reflection. As if life will finally begin when the work is finally over. But life doesn't wait. It doesn't magically start at 65. It has been happening all along. And most of us were simply too busy, anxiously preparing for it, to notice the sheer magnitude of what we were postponing. So maybe the real lie isn't just about the promise of retirement. Maybe the lie is that you ever needed to wait for freedom at all. Maybe freedom was never a destination you could drive to. It was a way of being, one you could have chosen at any given point, but no one told you that. Because a free person cannot be controlled. A free person doesn't need the script. A free person sees retirement not as a reward, but as a chilling reminder that we traded our most vibrant days for a promise that was never entirely real. And now all that remains is the profound wonder of what life could have been if we had just started living it sooner. If freedom was never the actual goal, then what was? To understand that, we need to step back and examine the core structure. The machine that shaped your life before you even knew it existed. Because what most of us call normal isn't natural at all. It is a system, one built not to empower individuals, but to standardize them. Starting effectively in the 20th century, human life was quietly industrialized. Not just labor, but life itself. It was efficiently broken down into a series of predictable, manageable stages: education, employment, retirement, death. From the moment you are born, your path is already rigidly mapped. Go to school, get good grades, learn how to sit still and follow instructions. Then pick a career. Clock in, clock out. Serve its needs. You weren't encouraged to ask why you worked, only how hard. You weren't taught to question the routine, only to perpetually improve your efficiency within that routine. A 2007 publication from the American Psychological Association, The Retiring Mind, stated it bluntly: modern humans have never designed their own lives. They simply follow plans laid out by others. And when you really internalize that idea, isn't that what most of us do? We simply inherit a template. We follow the prescribed model. We spend our most vital years working, often far more than 47 hours a week, and rarely ever stop to ask, what am I truly working for? Who is this actually serving? This is the deeper deception, the belief that your life belongs to you, when in truth it has been scheduled, scripted and monetized from the very start. The education system trains you for labor, the labor system demands your most precious time, and the retirement system quietly dismisses you the moment your measurable utility begins to decline. The entire structure is designed for maximum output, not personal fulfillment. Yet, most people never resist this structure, not because they agree with it, but because they have never been shown a viable alternative. When a machine is all you have ever known, the system's silence begins to feel deceptively like peace. But it is not peace. It is numbness. You are not free. You are simply no longer questioning. The tragedy is that many people don't even realize they are inside a machine until it's far too late. Until the noise of the job stops and they are left sitting alone in the quiet, frantically wondering where all the time actually went. Because when your life is built exclusively around schedules, deadlines, productivity metrics, and future goals, you tragically lose touch with the present moment, with your own inner compass, with what it truly means to live a life you have consciously chosen. You were not born to be a gear in a machine. You were born to experience life, to feel deeply, to create, to connect, to explore. But a system that runs solely on control has no room for that kind of radical freedom. So, it sells you a version of life that feels safe, structured, and respectable, and quietly drains your
Surface. You should feel an exhilarating freedom, but instead, many feel profoundly lost. Not because they miss the actual work, but because they lose themselves. They no longer know who they are without the role. The identity they spent decades meticulously building is suddenly, irrevocably gone. According to the National Institute on Aging, depression rates increase by over 40% during the first year of retirement. And it is not because people lack money, comfort, or free time. It is because they are suddenly forced to answer a question they have spent their lives avoiding. If I'm no longer working, who am I? This is the crisis that hides beneath the surface, the one no financial advisor can prepare you for. It is not about income, it is about identity. And when that identity was built entirely on function, its collapse feels like a quiet, internal death. A death that happens while you are still breathing, while you are still here, but desperately unsure who is left inside. There is a now famous post on Reddit from a man named John, 64 years old, recently retired after a long life as an engineer at Boeing. He wrote with raw honesty, "I realized I never actually lived. I just worked, and now that the work is over, I have no idea what to do." His words are painfully common, because John's story is not unique. It is a mirror reflecting countless lives, lives where identity and profession became one, until there was no separation left between the man and the job. For years we are incessantly told to strive, to climb, to produce, but no one ever teaches us how to simply exist. So when the striving ends, the silence is deafening, and in that silence you feel the crushing weight of everything you once postponed. The curiosity you never followed, the genuine passions you buried, the parts of you that didn't neatly fit the role so they were left behind. And that is the great illusion, the idea that your value lies exclusively in being useful, that worth equals function. But as Alan Watts once reminded us, you are not a role, you are the playing of life itself. You were never meant to be just one thing. Life was never meant to be a single job title carried to the grave. But it takes a profound courage to face the void that opens when the role ends.
Because a machine absolutely cannot control. A self that is free, not because it retired from work, but because it awakened to life. But even after the role ends, the machine does not simply let you go. It just gives you a new one. This time, not as a worker, but as a consumer. You do not retire from the system. You retire into another system, one ruthlessly designed to profit off the years you have left. The moment you step out of your career, you step directly into the crosshairs of a trillion-dollar industry, the business of retirement freedom. It's a seductive, glossy illusion, one that sells you peace, leisure, and fulfillment, all neatly packaged in cruise brochures, real estate pitches, detailed financial plans, and endless insurance portfolios. You're told, this is your time to enjoy life, to travel the world, to finally live. But here is the trick. It is not freedom they are offering, it is a product. And the product isn't the trip, the condo, or the luxurious lifestyle. The product is you, or more precisely, your desperate desire to feel in control after decades of being controlled. They sell you comfort because they know you are afraid of chaos. They sell you plans because they know you have never lived without one. So, instead of encouraging deep inner freedom, they offer external order, a new routine of spending, managing, and maintaining, a continuation of structure disguised expertly as liberation. And just like that, retirement becomes a market, not a milestone, a demographic, not a discovery. You are not free, you are just being softly reabsorbed into a more mature corner of the exact same machine. The most convincing part of this lie? It feels reasonable, practical, even responsible. You are strongly urged to meet with financial advisors, to meticulously plan your portfolio, and to maximize your retirement years. But few stop to ask, who truly benefits from these plans? Who profits from my compliance? The uncomfortable truth is that most financial advice is not neutral. It is an industry, and all industries have motives. The very institutions urging you to chase ultimate retirement security are the ones collecting the fees, commissions, and interest from what you have been sold as freedom is just another layer of control. This does not mean there is no value in rest, in travel, or in financial planning. It means those things are only meaningful when they spring from intention, not indoctrination. If your retirement is just another script, another rigid checklist of things you are supposed to do, then you have not escaped the system at all. You have simply changed costumes. The real tragedy isn't that people want to enjoy life after working. It's that they were never shown how to enjoy it while they were working. They were trained to delay, to defer, to survive. And when the moment finally arrives to live, they are still automatically following someone else's plan. Because freedom isn't found in what you can buy after 65. It is found in the courage to ask, what if I stopped buying into the lie altogether? Perhaps the biggest lie wasn't just the promise of retirement. Maybe it was the pervasive training that came long before it. Because from the moment you were old enough to understand the world, you were taught to wait, to postpone joy, to delay life. First it was, when I graduate. Then, when I get the job. Then, when I get promoted. When I pay off the house. When I retire. Then you'll be happy. Then you'll feel free. Then you'll finally start living. But then never truly comes because you have been psychologically conditioned to chase it. Like a mirage on the horizon, it disappears every time you think you are close enough to drink. Behavioral psychology has a name for this specific mental trap: delay discounting, the systemic tendency to undervalue immediate, present experiences in favor of imagined rewards later. The more you delay gratification, the more you train your mind to believe that now is never enough, that life is always somewhere else, always in the future. And so, you live your days in a kind of suspended animation, checking boxes, meeting schedules, saving for later. You become an expert in survival, not presence. You know how to budget, schedule, and optimize, but not how to be still, to feel deeply, that hustle is meaning, that slowing down is weakness. So we internalize the toxic belief that rest must be earned, that joy is a luxury, that aliveness is conditional. And before we know it, our entire existence becomes a long, anxious rehearsal for a performance that never begins. But here is the final truth. There is no grand finale, no perfect moment, no final destination where everything suddenly makes sense and nothing hurts. Life is happening right now, in the chaos, in the quiet, in the uncertainty, in the simple breath you just took. And if you cannot touch it now, you will never touch it later, because later is just another word for never when you've been taught to delay absolutely everything. The system doesn't just steal your time, it steals your presence. It convinces you that living is something you do after you've earned it, but you do not have to earn your own existence. You never did. You don't need permission to feel joy. You don't need a reason to be fully alive. So the question is no longer, when will you start living? The real question is, will you ever stop waiting? So what do we do with all this? After stripping away the myths, the roles, and the scripts, what's left? Just this, a choice. Because real freedom isn't something you wait for. It isn't something handed to you after decades of loyalty to a flawed system. And it certainly isn't something you can buy with a pension plan. Real freedom is a capacity, not a condition. It's not about having more time. It's about having the power to be fully alive in the time you already have. Freedom is presence. It's the profound ability to meet life exactly as it is, not as you wish it would be, or as you planned it, or as they told you it should look. And the wildest part? You don't have to retire to find it. You can start now, inside the very system that tried to take it from you. You can retire from the mentality before you ever retire from the job. That begins with redefining who you are, not by what you do, not by the role you play, but by what you value, what lights you up. The plans and purchases is presence with each other. That's where meaning lives. Alan Watts said, "This is the real secret of life, to be completely engaged with the now." That's not just philosophy, it's a vital survival skill. In a world that is constantly pulling you toward later, toward someday, toward what's next, your ability to return to now is an act of rebellion. And maybe that is the most powerful retirement of all, retiring from the trance, from the endless striving, from the debilitating belief that life is always just a few steps away. You don't need to wait until 65. You don't need the perfect plan. What you need is the courage to stop, to breathe, and to ask yourself, what would it mean to actually live today? Not to prepare for life, not to plan for life, but to live it fully, honestly, and without the mask. Because the lie was never just about retirement. The real lie was that you ever had to earn your freedom. And the truth? You were free the moment you stopped waiting.